Welcome to Carolina One's video training series. In today's session, we will be looking at Section 8 of the Agreement to Buy and Sell Residential Real Estate. Okay, Section 8 has to deal with repair procedure. Basically, what you need to understand is when a buyer makes an offer on a property and it comes to repairs, they have two choices. They can choose to either go with a repair procedure, or they can choose to go with a due diligence. And we'll talk about due diligence in the next webinar, but let's focus today on repair procedure. First of all, in Section A, what it basically says is that the buyer has the right and privilege of having the property inspected. It delineates what that inspection will focus on, particularly the structure, the square footage, environmental concerns, heating, air, electric, plumbing, and so forth. The first thing you need to note is that repair inspections need to be completed by a specified date. And so here you would write in the deadline or the date in which you would make sure to have the buyer's repairs or the buyer's home inspection completed. As a general rule of thumb, you want to keep this date as close as you can to the actual contract date. That way that if there is an issue, you'd have plenty of time to resolve it. Plus, it also allows for the process to go ahead and get started. Now, once you have selected that date and you complete the home inspection, the buyer then has the opportunity to make what are called repair requests, and they have to deliver these repair requests in writing specifically. Okay, so they have to specifically state the defects or deficiencies no later than 2 business days after the repair date mentioned above. So again, you have your inspection date up here, and within 2 business days of this date, the buyer would need to send over to the seller a list of the items that they would like the seller to address. Also note that the items that the seller would be addressing has some limitations in the sense that it focuses on the issues in the highlighted paragraph. So it is a major home inspection looking at major items, and those major items are talked about here in this particular section. So if the buyer, by the way, fails to follow the dates and misses the deadlines, then the buyer has waived all their rights underneath this particular section. So make sure that you note that inspection deadline and you give your buyer enough time to get that inspection completed, as well as get the repairs repair requests sent over to the seller. Now, the second paragraph deals with these repair requests. Once the seller receives the repair requests, they will have blank business days to give a reply. And typically we see anywhere from 3 to 5 business days noted there. Of course, this is always something that can be adjusted or amended. If you do the inspection and you find out there are significant repairs that might require additional professionals to come in and give estimates or whatnot, you can always go back and amend this section. But typically we see anywhere from 3 to 5 business days here. Now, if the seller agrees to do the repairs, then the parties agree to proceed under contract. So basically what this says is once the buyer sends a list of repairs over, if the seller agrees to do those repairs, then the buyer agrees to move forward. One of the things to keep in mind when doing a repair procedure is the seller always has the right to choose to do the repairs. So if you have a buyer and they may be a little bit nervous about a home inspection, then you might want to consider doing due diligence as opposed to repair procedure. Because in a repair procedure, if the seller agrees to make the repairs, then the buyer agrees to move forward with the purchase of the property. Now, if the seller does not agree to make the repairs, down below indicates what the buyer's options are. So if the seller doesn't agree to make the repairs, the buyer has 2 business days to either accept the property in its present condition, negotiate with the seller for repairs and or price, or the buyer does have the right to terminate the contract and receive their earnest money. And if he ever gets to that point, remember you'll send over a notice to terminate rather than a release of contract. So it's a notice to terminate. It is unilateral, and the buyer would have the right to terminate if the seller chose not to do repairs. Now again, keep in mind, if the seller chooses to do the repairs, the buyer agrees to move forward with the house. So repair procedure is not a place where the buyer can do the inspection. If they don't like it, they can terminate the contract. No, can't do that. That would be under due diligence. Under the repair procedure, if the seller agrees to do repairs, then the buyer agrees to move forward with the purchase of the property. Down below, it talks a little bit about should they fail to reach a new amended contract or terminate the contract during the proper time frame. Basically, that means that the buyer has waived their right and will purchase the home as is. So these dates up above are very, very important, and you need to make sure that you're aware of those dates. You get everything done within the deadlines, and that way you'll make sure that the buyer is protected, and everybody has a very clear sense of what is expected from each party. All right, in the next webinar, we're going to talk about the due diligence and how that contrasts with the repair procedure.